Hello, we'll talk about Jean Renaudie. Today is October 14th. Very important and very interesting and challenging French architect. He was born on June 8th, 1925, but died on the 13th of October, 1981. And that's the reason we talk about him today, one day after the 13th of October. He was a French architect and town planner. This was the man. Unfortunately, he died rather young. You see, born 1925, died in 1981. So he died when he was 56. Jean Renaudie. Let's read a little bit about him. Jean Renaudie joined the École Nationale Supérieure des Beaux-Arts in 1945, the Superior National School of Fine Arts, in 1945, studying in the studios of Auguste Perret, great architect, and then Marcel Lotz, also an important architect. Gaining his architect's license in 1958, he founded l'Atelier de Montrouge with Pierre Riboulet, Gérard Tournoet, and Jean-Louis Verret. He practiced a form of architecture that, due to its starkness and the simplicity of its plastic effects, is described as brutalist. His studio stood out whether with a crash in Montrouge or with a Vincennes Stadium contest from 1963. He split with the other members of the Atelier in 1968. In addition to the disagreements about the events of May 1968, the students' revolt, they clashed on the planning of the new town Val de Reuil. Renaudie would have liked to put the town on the cliff overlooking the flat, wet site intended at the beginning. He thus created his own agency in Ivry-sur-Seine. From 1971 to 1975, and from 1976 to 1980, he participated in two phases of the renovation of the center of Ivry in collaboration with René Gaillustet. One of his projects, the Jean Hachette Shopping Center, gave him international recognition. From 1974, he worked on the renovation of the center of Old-Givor, creating the City of Stars. What a nice name, the City of Stars. Let's remember what Oscar Wilde said. He said, we are all in the gutter, but some of us look up to the stars. End of quotation. Between 1976 and 1981, he participated in the urban development zone of Ville-Tanneuse. He won the Grand Prix National de l'Architecture from the French Minister of Culture for the sum of his works. The main focus of his work was on social housing and urban planning, and he did some amazing social housing indeed. He had been one of the first opponents of the construction methods of the major housing estates, Grand Ensemble, and the first new towns in the 50s and 60s. He never wished to systematize architecture, creating a wide variety and diversity of apartments in his housing projects. One of his major achievements is found in Givor, at the foot of the ruined chateau. These blocks of social housing, again, please remember, social housing, because these are the most astonishing social housing complexes ever built, on the side of a hill, have a very special architecture which seeks to optimize the views and orientations of the houses. Some drawings of Jean Renaudie, visionary, ornamental, vivacious, and using geometry in unexpected ways. This is a fragment of some apartments that he actually built. As you can see, he has these drawings could be described as almost utopian or visionary, but he actually built some of them and or some schemes based on such drawings. Someone who could say, well, he just played with the forms. It's not just that. You know, he was an educated architect. He knew what he was doing, but he advocated an architectural vision. And we are going to see examples of his built work. But the drawings themselves, I think, have evoke a creative spirit, an innovative spirit. Jean Renaudie, Jean Renaudie, Jean Renaudie, vive la couleur, vive la géométrie. Anyway, let's not get too sentimental here, but he was an exceptional architect. 1959, 1964, small crash, a crash in Montrouge, you know, for young children. I mean, look, even here, you know, a very early work, you can see that, you know, this is a creative work. What else can we say? 1950s, and the children, you know, adorning beautifully the parapet of the spiraling staircase. Nice, very, very nice, and very nice picture. Yes, he used a lot of concrete, it's true. But at that time, he could be forgiven because there wasn't, you know, a concern with a high degree of pollution that concrete achieves. 1960, 1968, a fire station, also in Montrouge, but I have no pictures. At that time, he worked with other architects. Kumipe State Holiday Village, Bonterras. Look even of this. I mean, yes, there is an architectural vigor because of the concrete, but the way the wood is incorporated in the concrete work and participating to the duality concrete wood, concrete wood, concrete wood, I think is remarkable. By today's standards as well. If this was built in our time, it would have been hailed as a revolutionary, almost revolutionary housing project. A school, 1970, École des Plans, Cergy-Pontoise. Even here, you know, experimenting with the hexagon. Again, it is just in the case of Anna Heringer, of whom we talked earlier. We see the attempt to bring joy and playfulness into possibly morose project, that of a school. Here, colors, no? And the articulation of these pavilions and you know, the identification through color of various I guess you know, the coloring may be changed in time. I see this is different from what we saw earlier, but nevertheless, it is a school that proclaims the importance of innovation and playfulness, and not just in plan, but also in section, as you can see. The hexagon appears also in the section. Jean Renaudie, architect. Not bad. It's clear to me that good architects are almost against schools. I mean, they love schooling, they love education, but they also like to sabotage the schools through playfulness, through color, through unusual geometries, through configurations which are almost rebellious. Why not? They love freedom. Good architects, like good artists, like good writers, like good musicians, love freedom. Let's not forget what Maria Olbrich wrote on the facade of the secessionist building in Vienna. To each time its art, and to art its freedom. And I'm sure he included architecture. 1970, 1972, Opération Daniel Casanova in Ivry-sur-Seine with 80 houses, shops and offices, in collaboration with his partner René Gailloustet. I don't know if I pronounce well. He tried at a large scale to bring in his studies in, you know, informality, but based on geometry that we saw earlier. Now, just compare the buildings in the background with the buildings in the foreground. there are two radically different conceptions about housing, even about modernity. This is a different kind of modernity. It is a modernity which assumes the labyrinth, which assumes aleatory values, which assumes identification of the units in various ways, which welcomes variety. There is variety, there is multiplicity, but there is also unity. But it's a unity very different from what we saw there in the background, the typical blocks of flats. And, drawing, studies of Jean Renaudie. But you saw he built it. Look at the side plan. It's almost like an Oriental, a Persian rug. Why shouldn't it be like this? I mean, it's so very different now from Ville Radieuse by Le Corbusier. The very opposite, in fact. Excellent architect, Jean Renaudie. And look at the apartments. In many schools of architecture, this kind of spatial configuration is discouraged. Well, many professors in their moroseness say you cannot furnish a triangular room. Why not? Why not? Here you can see very well that is very, very possible. The truth of the matter is most professors are afraid of freedom, are afraid of exuberance, but that was not the case of Jean Renaudie. I like this plan very much. What's wrong with it? Nothing is wrong with it. And it's not just a sketch. It was built. And this is just one of many, and none repeats itself. Yes, there is the triangular geometry that he uses, but each apartment is different. And, in itself, this is an exceptional villa. And it's just an apartment of this large complex of many other apartments done in the same spirit. Here you see others. I wonder what Le Corbusier would have thought of Jean Renaudie, because he was, as we know, a great adversary of the zigzagging of the donkey. So he probably would have thought that Jean Renaudie is good friends with the donkey. Well, let us not forget, Le Corbusier himself later changed his mind and wanted to build a monument to the donkey in India when he was older. So I like to imagine that he would have liked the work of Jean Renaudie, zigzagging as it is. And it is zigzagging. And this is its virtue, actually. I would love to live in one of these apartments. And I think even Fujimoto would have loved these apartments, because I see in the, functional zones that there are areas which are not destined for a certain function. So I would say that these plans would conform with what Fujimoto advocated, between function and no function. And I think those spaces which have no prescribed function are actually very, very useful and enticing to the inhabitants, to the users of those spaces. But these are large complexes, and there are various situations. I would say that probably there are very few repetitions. There is unity, but there is also variety. So, as I said, there is multiplicity in unity, and this multiplicity is something that is almost completely absent in most conventional blocks of flats. Now, if these are also social housing, this is even more amazing. In other words, they are not built for an elite, but for the underprivileged. Not bad at all. This could have been a villa by a famous architect today, no? And this is just an apartment in this complex of many apartments built by Jean Renaudie. And there is also green. And the bushes, the grass are not afraid of the astuteness of the triangles. So this work would have been relevant and is relevant even for our time. You see how the ivy and the green loves to climb on enticing structures. Well, if given freedom, the green loves to climb on anything. So let's give freedom to the grass, to the green, to the ivy, if we cannot give freedom to ourselves. Jean Renaudie, a very different French architect. And not everything is as free. Like, this part towards the street, but here he was conditioned also by, who knows, the urban context. But all in all, there are interesting things. And look here, each apartment is different. And each apartment has, like a courtyard, like, a large balcony with various shapes. And it is like these people are the inhabitants of villas, one superimposed over the other, one over the other. And it becomes a mountain-like configuration. And these are very fashionable today. Bjarke Ingels tries, other architects try to bring in the mountain-like configuration, the mound-like configuration, the hill, the architectural hill. Well, Jean Renaudie did this half a century ago. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, half a century ago. Why is it that there is no green on the blocks of flats, the vertical blocks of flats behind, while here there is? So he was a revolutionary, he was a pioneer. He anticipated what was to come. 1970, 1975, Opération Jean Hachette in Ivry-sur-Seine. We built several such complexes, you see, with shops, offices, and cinema, again in collaboration with Renée Gaël Houstet. I don't know if I pronounce well her name, Gaël Houstet, I guess. It's possible she's still alive, as opposed to him who died. But I think no one would contest the virtues of verity. Another operation, Jean-Baptiste Clément, again in Ivry-sur-Seine, with 10 houses and shops in collaboration with the same person. I don't think there are too many people who don't love verity. I don't think so. Humans like changes, variations. So I wonder why we don't have more of that. Jean Renaudie. Yes, again, he used a lot of concrete. What can we do, at the time? But it's very possible that if he lived and worked today, he would have found materials that would have been less polluting than concrete. Renovation of Old Givor in Rhône, 270 apartments, they are called houses, shops, library, crèche, theater, and police station. Cité des Étoiles in Givor, 1974. And at that time, he worked without the help of, digital technology. This was done, the project was done manually. In my opinion, this is a good text by Leopold Lambert. In my opinion, Jean Renaudie is one of the very best French architects of the last 50 years. I would agree with him. His two housing complexes in Ivry-sur-Seine near Paris and in Givors near Lyon are two very successful examples of architecture becoming urban in an era, 50s and 60s, that created what is now famous as the French suburbs catastrophe. In fact, those two housing complexes are extremely interesting in the fact that they embody a real urban density, mix several social levels, organize urban life on a multitude of stories, blur the limits between private and public areas, and supply a little piece of garden to every apartment. This architecture is full of episodes, surprising moments of beauty in an urban artifact landscape full of hideaways. Excellent, excellent description of an excellent architecture. And look at this. What architect would do something like this even today with all our help that we receive from, computers and so on? He was a man of vision, and he acted upon his vision, and he was able to build. If he would have lived 30 years more, we can imagine that he would have added other interesting works to the field of architecture and to life itself and to the culture of, you see this fragmentation that even nature loves, because there are interstitial spaces, hideaways, as Lambert described them. There are these places that cannot be totally clearly exhausted at the first glance. So there is some mystery here because of this complexity and fragmentation, and I think we need more of this. There is a multitude here. Yes, there are large numbers of apartments, large number of people, but they are not crushingly totalitarian, monolithical, because the fragmentation dilutes the potentially negative aspects of large numbers. And this is to be considered, because even if this is an architectural hill or an architectural mountain, because it is composed of individualized units, this fragmentation connects with the old town, like in this case, where the houses are not very different in size from the apartments that compose the architectural hill. And yes, the pleasure, the luxury to have, little gardens, individualized, each one of them, some bigger, some smaller. This is very, very conducive to life and to creativity and to enjoy being on this earth. Yes, again, there is concrete, but the green attacks the concrete, and that's a good step forward. Urban regeneration in Saint-Martin is there with houses, offices, and shops. Here we don't see too much green yet, but imagine when this would be attacked by ivy and other plants, would be much better, as we can see already here on the first floor. Yes, Jean Renaudie. Another urban regeneration, 1975-1981. He died in 1982. There is some, unfortunately, I only have this picture, but it seems he used here brick. I only found this picture. I have to search harder. But now we arrive at the Einstein School in Ivry-sur-Seine, which was built between 1979 and 1982. And it's this one on the left. So why not have a continuum now between space and time and honor the great scientist poet? Because Einstein was a poet in the field of science. So it is a school which is part of the organism of the larger architectural mountain. With this, I end this presentation on remarkable architect, Jean Renaudie. Thank you.